Um, Peace. That's all I have to say for now. A woman I would love to honor at this exact moment is a dear woman to me named Beverly Johnson. And if you believe in the power of prayer, please say a prayer for her. The reason I'm honoring her is because, um, as usual, I try to do my best to, whenever I go live, as far as my Readers Are Leaders campaign, to set a tone of honoring women so that the common woman can see regular brothers like you and I. Peace to the King, Anthony Ray. Um, just showing some love to our queens that have been there for us. And this woman is a great leader and servant. And what I mean by that is, um, I grew up a couple of doors away from her, and she always embraced me with warmth, compassion, and wisdom. She was a deputy for some years, and in the times that I struggled as a youth going in and out of jail, she, always came and checked on me. I know fool my girlfriend, and if she was around and there was extra food available, she made sure that I got it. Um, she didn't ever make me write a essay, but she did have my brother write one. But me and her did have lots of discussions, and she was always nice. She never judged me by my charges or anything like that. You know what I mean? And not just judge me. She taught me things. Like this woman, hand skills was official. We used to wrestle with her and her husband, and we could tackle her husband, but she was like super Saiyan strong. You know what I mean? But she was very fun, very wise, and just love her to pieces. You know what I mean? So I want to honor Miss Beverly Johnson. I call her auntie because I'm just family. That's my family as well, right? Okay. Also, I know a lot of you are starting to notice that it's getting harder and harder and harder to get by. Hey, listen, me and a couple of brothers, I'm gonna say y'all names. I hope y'all don't mind. The brother Anthony Ray, the brother Shemaiah Yisrael, and there's another brother in Florida. I haven't spoken to him yet. And there's a sister in Virginia. I'm gonna build with her as well as we get an opportunity. But we're gonna expand the Readers Are Leaders campaign. There's some T-shirts on the way. We're putting some things together, so there's big things on the way. And there's one more important thing. There's a brother that I'm hoping, I believe that he's getting ready to be released from prison. Not necessarily today, but he will get the approval today, hopefully. And I believe that's what's going to happen. And if he does, he's going to be a major addition to the Readers Are Leaders campaign. I do this not just for y'all. I do this for myself, for my children. This is a way that I can interact and they can view who I am. I don't get paid for this. Peace to the brother in me, y'all, man. I loved y'all out there taking all of that footage, man, coming together as a family and just being who you are as an individual, enlightening me with some of the things that you post and share. Um, I just want to know that black people, I love y'all, man, and our time is here. Today, June 19th, I believe, I could be wrong, maybe it was 1865. I have to check the exact date, but this is the official day of Juneteenth. This is the official day that we were, quote unquote, free and supposedly treated, you know what I mean, allowed to be treated as equals, even though I know to this day we actually haven't been given compensation or recognized as entitled to having human rights. There's a human rights issue going on with the brothers, you know what I mean, south of the border, and not just the brothers and sisters and the families south of the border or coming from anywhere, you know what I mean, and they're separating families, and a lot of people keep forgetting that all of these things that everybody else is going through, that we as the Black America have gone through, we have been challenging this since day one. And as opposed to, trying to form some new type of committee to address these issues, if we address the issue that happened with us as a people and how 99% of the wealth that um, has been inherited in this country and stolen from the labor of the black folk that were never compensated. If we address that, if we amend that, if we change these laws that massively incarcerate black and brown people and have been doing it since the day they ended slavery, if we do that, There will not be anything going on, definitely here, that would hurt brothers and sisters of any ethnicity when it comes to these human rights. You know, while we talking about this, y'all know that they're doing live slave trading as we speak in Libya right now. And it's so funny that until it happens to a person of a different complexion, we don't get that attention. I seen a young sister, I seen a young lady today on the video with the police who got her hair cut. And I want y'all to see how aggressive those officers are. These officers, remember I told y'all, man, and then I'm not just telling you something that I believe. I'm telling you something that's a fact. Whether you want to believe it or not, that's your choice, but you got to live with the consequences of your choice too, because I'm telling y'all to get prepared how they out here acting. That was the slave patrol. That was the slave patrol. They just changed their name. They didn't change everything about who they are and their identity, who they are in their heart of hearts. That's why they got that blue code of conduct, the silence code of conduct for the brothers in blue. Now, I'm not saying all police are bad or anyone in the military is bad. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, we got some truth, man, is just hard to swallow, man. But you know what's funny? The truth don't need any exaggeration. So with that being said, lady asked that young woman her name. She gave her her name. Yeah, I said y'all pulled them over for standing up or looking out of the sunroof or whatever. This is not prison, man. This is a free world. If they do something that requires a ticket, what's so hard about giving them a ticket and de-escalating the situation? Even if, as long as they're not offending you or threatening you, even if they call you out of your name, officer, what's the purpose of arresting them roughly and being aggressive with them? And especially you men, how are y'all grabbing these women? I don't care if you an officer, how you grabbing these women and just doing whatever you want to do to them? Like, man, people gonna keep letting you do that to their kids. Y'all think this whole country just some dumbasses and we just gonna accept whatever y'all do? Y'all better start treating people the way you want to be treated. I don't give a fuck what your policy is. Y'all better start treating people the way you want to be treated. People are human beings, and they all have a right to respect them. When you uphold one of these supposed police positions, you decided to step out and be an example of what's right and what's wrong, not to just uphold the law, because if a law isn't right morally, you shouldn't even uphold that shit, period. I don't give a fuck what you believe or say. It's a fact. So you also see these postings. There's a video. I just heard a young man now. I don't want to be saying my ignorance this. And if you know what the word "ni" blah, blah, blah means, you know when I say ignorance, that's basically what I'm substituting. Even though he says my ignorance a few times, his overall message is very powerful. He's one of the few people that I ever posted on my page that has, a video talking about people spending their money. You know what I mean? We have the least amount of money, but we spend our money the most. Our money stays in our communities on average 7 to 10 minutes. 7 to 10 minutes. All the communities allow their money to circulate amongst each other. You know what I mean? They support one another's businesses. They allow anyone to come and buy anything from their business, but they only spend their money with people that look like them, come from where they come from, and speak like them. And that's what we need to get back on, black folk, period. Yeah, a lot of times we've tried this in the past, and they've come and they've torn it down. But at the end of the day, all we can do is rebuild to the point where they can't tear it down, where we basically just win it. Because once we transfer that bread back to us, man, ain't no stopping us. Okay, so the reason I was speaking about that is because I want y'all to join me on this financial literacy journey, because that is what's going to be our safe haven and our breakthrough. I'm telling you, that's where our financial Juneteenth is going to come, and that's where we're going to start seeing and appreciating each other more and more by the second. Okay, if you don't have your Mind Over Money book, yo, I ordered this joint last week and it came the day before Father's Day. So this is my Father's Day gift to me. I already got 4 chapters in. I'm gonna read the rest of it today. And yes, this is the very next book I'm reading. The reason I'm gonna continue reading the New Jim Crow is because Oh man, I heard somebody say that like whatever I just said 2 minutes ago, that was in the past. So in essence, we actually live in the past because the past is happening every moment, right? Um, but we need to know not just financially, we need to know exactly where we stand in the past, what we have accomplished, and what we can do again, so that we can repeat the successes that we had, so that we can incur and attract greater successes. Um, so yeah, I'm just really excited. It's a beautiful day. I don't think it's as warm as I'd like it to be because I opened up the window and I felt that little nip in the air, and in the sun it probably feels great, but in the shade it's probably about 60 degrees. And I don't dig that. I need that 75, 80-degree weather. I need about two more shades of this complexion that I've been desiring to have since I was like a teen. Okay, so let me stop boring you, but yes, join me on this financial literacy journey. $30 a month. Listen, you're going to get access to some beautiful classes that are going to be able to open your eyes and to help you to monetize not only your time, but some of the ideas you've never acted upon in the little bit of time that you have available. Fuck the TV, fuck the sports and the entertainment, man. Fuck all of that shit. The new wave and shit right now, the new wave, what everybody on right now, everybody on, man, learning more and doing more with what they have. I'm talking specifically about black people. Ain't no sports on that you want to watch. I mean, they got the WNBA and all of that, and I'm not telling you you can't participate in this. I'm saying, what if? What if this summer we just focused on making sure that our children are doing something academically, day in and day out, challenging them, even if it's something hard. I don't care that it's hard. Challenge them now. When they get back to school, they're already in the mind frame of being able to decipher other stuff because they already challenged themselves to another level that the school probably not even going to ever challenge them on. Number one. Number two, challenge ourselves. We can't be setting the bar for our children without setting the bar for ourselves. We got to lead by example. So here I am having difficulties understanding and comprehending all my life, but I'm reading every day. I'm reading every day. And I may not be the best reader. I may not comprehend the things immediately that I do read, but I do get an understanding, and I have no problem going back, looking at words, going to the dictionary, finding their meanings, finding synonyms, and using them in sentences so that I can understand what it is that I was reading. And everything that I'm reading right now, I'm going to read again before the year is out once or twice just to make sure I thoroughly understand it and to get other ideas. Because when you ever watch a movie today and then you'll watch it again a couple of times maybe in the next month, you won't watch it again for maybe a year or two. But when you watch it the next time, you always pick up something that you didn't see before. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm loving this. And if you have any ideas from you, if you'd like to sit at the round table with me and a brother, Shemaiah Yisrael, Anthony Ray, I definitely need a couple of sisters. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to just be us, even though I do feel that the black male definitely needs that more. I think all our children need it. You know what I mean? But this was my way of basically trying to um, prevent brothers from taking steps that me and other brothers who have spent time away from our families, from our lives, from being able to build, spent years. I'm waiting on a very, very important phone call. Oh, that's not it. But hold on one moment. Let me cut that off. Okay. So, yes, mindovermoneybook.com, $8 for shipping and handling. It's a very easy read. Even your children can read it. And he actually even he will actually autograph it. So, and I'm telling you, this brother is not like just a shot in the dark. This brother is thorough. He's consistent, and his success is growing exponentially, and he deserves it. So mindovermoneybook.com. Go ahead and grab that joint. $8 shipping and handling. Grab the all-inclusive 30-day financial literacy opportunity, man. It's right here. It's in the chat. I'm telling you, even if you in business, even if you a scholar, even if you're good at what you're doing, or if you're struggling doing what you're doing, we all need to be accountable. And how can you hold yourself accountable to do more if you're not pushing yourself around people that, number one, want to see you doing better, and number two, that actually have achieved the success that you want to achieve? This brother has made this so reasonable. $30. For $30, you'll be able to access this information in these courses that will show you how to monetize your products, your services, and your time. Okay? And not only that, You'll be able to speak to this brother via YouTube, or not necessarily YouTube, but I'm trying to think of the word. I'm gonna say Zoom because I know that that's one of the programs that we use. And you can ask him these questions. You can ask him, what do he think about this, or whatever. And I'm talking about for this little $30 once a week, you can speak to this brother who will give you his time, which is valuable, which he probably may charge someone else $250 an hour for, but he's gonna give it to you on the strength that you're coming through me, and he knows that I'm serious about what I'm doing. Hey, I'm telling you, overnight, I guarantee you within a month of just building with this brother, I guarantee you whatever money you're making right now, I bet you'll be making more. I bet you it'll be coming faster, and I bet you will be. I bet you he sparked something in you to make more money faster than you have already. I'm willing to put bread on it. That's how serious it is with me. And again, back at this readers or leaders thing, I'm gonna read this again because I know a lot of people don't understand it, and I wrote it down not only so that I can remember it, because this is exactly what it was for me. This is exactly why I decided to get into it. And guess what? A conversation happened between me and the same individual, and he is a major part of the reason why I started this Readers or Leaders campaign. So I'm reading aloud daily to encourage and support the rise of leadership and economic empowerment in our communities. It's not just about the fellas, but the reason I was directing it towards the fellas, I see lots of programs for the young women. I do not see a lot of programs for the fellas outside of playing sports. And I think that's part of our problem. We got our children so focused on athletics, we're not letting them rely on the power of their mind. I don't got nothing against athletics or being an athlete. I love it. I love playing basketball. I love playing football. And I haven't actually played any of them in years. And if I did, like with the exception of basketball, every year I take a few young boys to school just to let them know that y'all been balling all year, and older men like me still got it because y'all here drinking and smoking yourself to death. You know what I mean? So it's just a lot of fun, and my son and my nephews and some of the youngins that be around, it's just a way to build with them and, just keep the camaraderie going. So you can learn how to do more with what you have and how to prepare and empower our people for the rest of our lives using this financial literacy from a brother that come from the hood, from a brother that actually understands everything that's going on, and a brother that didn't just work in the hood. He worked in corporate America. And not only did he work in corporate America, he actually owns businesses. He's not just somebody telling you how to open a business and how to run a business from a textbook perspective. He's talking from actual experience, and a brother younger than me. But wisdom comes in all shapes and forms. So I'm humbly accepting of all of his wisdom. Please believe it. Okay, so let me go ahead and I've been speaking already for like 17, 18 minutes. Let me get into the color of justice and we can get on to this. Oh, by the way, I'm not as sick as I was. I'm still a little sick as far as phlegm. I haven't gotten the phlegm out all the way, but my throat feels like 100% better, like 100% better. Even my finger, I still can't bend it all of the way, but it's healing. I'm gonna have to put it back in that little sling momentarily, but they told me to stretch it. Okay, so pay attention to what I'm about to read because this book is deep, man. I really wish I could just sit on a panel with some brothers, man, and we just really go through this together. The Color of Justice, Chapter 3, Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. Imagine you are Irma Faye Stewart, a 30-year-old single African-American mother of two who was arrested as part of a drug sweep in Hearne, Texas. All of but one of the people arrested were African-American. You are innocent. After a week in jail, you have no one to care for your two small children and are eager to get home. Your court-appointed attorney urges you to plead guilty to a drug distribution charge, saying a prosecutor has offered probation. You refuse, steadfastly proclaiming your innocence. Finally, after almost a month in jail, you decide to plead guilty so you can return home to your children. Unwilling to risk a trial and years of imprisonment, you are sentenced to 10 years probation in order to pay $1,000 in fines as well as court and probation costs. You are also now branded a drug felon. You are no longer eligible for food stamps. You may be discriminated against in employment. You cannot vote for at least 12 years, and you are about to be evicted from the public housing. Once homeless, your children will be taken from you and put in foster care. A judge eventually dismisses all cases against the defendants who did not plead guilty. At trial, the judge finds that the entire suit was based on the testimony of a single informant who lied to the prosecution. You, however, are still a drug felon, homeless, and desperate to regain custody of your children. Now place yourself in the shoes of Clifford Runold's, Runoalds, another African American victim of the Hearn drug bust. You returned home to Bryan, Texas, to attend the funeral of your 18-month-old daughter. Before the funeral services begin, the police show up and handcuff you. You beg the officers to let you take one last look at your daughter before she is buried. The police refuse. You are told by prosecutors that you are needed to testify against one of the defendants in a recent drug bust. You deny witnessing any drug transaction. You don't know what they are talking about. Because of your refusal to cooperate, you are indicted on felony charges. After a month of being held in jail, the charges against you are dropped. You are technically free, but as a result of your arrest and period of incarceration, you lose your job, your apartment, your furniture, and your car, not to mention the chance to say goodbye to your baby girl. This is the war on drugs. The brutal stories described are not isolated incidents, nor are the racial identities of Irma Faye Stewart and random or accidental. In every state across our nation, African Americans, particularly in the poorest neighborhoods, are subjected to tactics and practices that result in public outrage and scandal if committed in middle-class white neighborhoods. In a drug war, the enemy is racially defined. The law enforcement methods described in Chapter 2 have been employed almost exclusively in poor communities of color, resulting in jaw-dropping numbers of African Americans and Latinos filling our nation's prisons and jails every year. We are told by drug warriors that the enemy in this war is a thing, drugs, not a group of people, but the facts prove otherwise. Human Rights Watch reported in 2000 that in 7 states, African Americans constitute 80 to 90% of all drug offenders sent to prison. In at least 15 states, blacks are admitted to prison on drug charges at a rate from 25 to 57 times greater than that of white men. In fact, nationwide, the rate of incarceration for African American drug offenders dwarfs the rate of whites. When the war on drugs gained full steam in the mid-1980s, prison admissions for African Americans skyrocketed, nearly quadrupling in 3 years, and then increasing steadily until it reached, in 2000, a level more than 26 times the level in 1983. The number of 2000 drug admissions for Latinos was 22 times the number of 1983 admissions. Whites have been admitted to prison for drug offenses at increased rates as well. The number of whites admitted for drug offenses in 2000 was 8 times the number admitted in 1983. Notice their increase was like 8 times, but Latino and blacks were between 22 and 57 times. Although the majority of illegal drug users and dealers nationwide are white, 3/4 of all people in prison for drug offenses have been black or Latino. I'm going to just pause here because I just got a thought. You know, when a man or woman gets raped, a lot of times people say stuff like, oh, they shouldn't have did this. This person shouldn't have did this. But they never look at the perpetrator. The perpetrator. These drugs that everybody's being arrested for were not made in the United States, and they know it. They are being brought in by the government, and this is a fact. So what sense does it make punishing these people who are poor and just looking for a way to get by? Because the minimum wage ain't going to help you if you can't get a job because you got felonies that are preventing you from incurring an actual full-time job. So I just want y'all to think about that. The drugs that come to the United States are not from the United States. And they're not brought here by these regular citizens that supposedly sell them. But nobody wants to punish those people. But they want to punish the lowest level people, the users and the dealers that are literally just trying to get by, not even trying to cause no problems. They just trying to get by, and they see the opportunity because it was presented there. In certain places, they actually leaving the drugs specifically so that this can take place. You know, now they're doing things a little bit differently, but in the past, this is exactly how it got on the streets of LA, on the streets of Atlanta, on the streets of New York. You know what I mean? It was brung here. Okay. In recent years, rates of black imprisonment for drug offenses have dipped somewhat, declining approximately 25% from their zenith in the mid-1990s. But it remains the case that African Americans are incarcerated at grossly disproportionate rates throughout the entire United States. There is, of course, an official explanation for all of this: crime rates. This explanation has tremendous appeal before you know the facts, for it is consistent with and reinforces dominant racial narratives about crime and criminality dating back to slavery. The truth, however, is that rates and patterns of drug crime do not explain the glaring racial disparities in our criminal justice system. People of all races use and sell illegal drugs at remarkably similar rates. If there are significant differences in the surveys to be found, they frequently suggest that whites, particularly white youth, are more likely to engage in illegal drug dealing than people of color. One study, for example, published in 2000 by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, reported that white students use cocaine at 7 times the rate of black students, use crack cocaine at 8 times the rate of black students, and use heroin at 7 times the rate of black students. The same survey revealed that nearly identical percentages of white and black high school seniors use marijuana. The National Household Survey on Drug Abuse reported in 2000 that white youth aged 12 to 17 are more than a third more likely to have sold illegal drugs than African American youth. Thus, the very same year, Human Rights Watch was reporting that African Americans were being arrested and imprisoned at unprecedented rates. Government data revealed that blacks were more likely to be guilty of drug crimes than whites, and that white youth were actually the most likely of any racial or ethnic group to be guilty of illegal drug possession and sales. Any notion that drug use among blacks is more severe or dangerous is belied by the data. White youth have about 3 times the number of drug-related emergency room visits as their African American counterparts. The notion that whites compromise the vast majority of drug users and dealers and may well be more likely than other racial groups to commit drug crimes may seem implausible to some, given the media imagery we are fed on a daily basis and the racial composition of our prisons and jails. Upon reflection, however, the prevalence of white drug crime, including drug dealing, should not be surprising. After all, where do whites get their illegal drugs? Do they all have to go to the ghetto to purchase them from somebody to stand on the street corner? No. Studies consistently indicate that drug markets, like American society, generally reflect our nation's racial and socioeconomic boundaries. Whites tend to sell to whites, blacks to blacks. University students tend to sell rights for their part, don't make a special trip to the hood to purchase marijuana. They buy it from somebody down the road. White high school students typically buy drugs from white classmates, friends, or older relatives. Even Barry McCaffrey, former director of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, once remarked, "If your child bought drugs, it was from a student of their own race generally." The notion that most illegal drug use and sales happens in the ghetto is pure fiction. Drug trafficking occurs there, but it occurs everywhere else in America as well. Nevertheless, black men have been admitted to state prison on drug charges at a rate that is more than 13 times higher than white men. The racial bias inherent in the drug war is a major reason that 1 in every 14 black men was behind bars in 2006, compared with 1 in 106 white men. For young black men, the statistics are even worse. 1 in 9 black men between the ages of 20 and 35 was behind bars in 2006, and far more were under some form of penal control, such as probation or parole. These gross racial disparities simply cannot be explained by rates of illegal drug activity among African Americans. What, then, does explain the extraordinary racial disparities in our country's criminal justice system? Old-fashioned racism seems out of the question. Politicians and law enforcement officials today rarely endorse racially biased practices, and most of them fiercely condemn racial discrimination of any kind. When accused of racial bias, police and prosecutors, like most Americans, express horror and outrage. Forms of race discrimination that were open and notorious for centuries were transformed in the 60s and 70s into something un-American, an affront to our newly conceived ethic of colorblindness. By the early 80s, survey data indicated that 90% of whites thought black and white children should attend the same schools. 71% disagreed. Let me read that again. By the early 1980s, survey data indicated that 90% of whites thought black and white children should attend the same schools. 71% disagreed with the idea that whites have a right to keep blacks out of their neighborhoods. 80% indicated they would support a black candidate for president, and 66% opposed laws prohibiting intermarriage. Although far fewer supported specific policies designed to achieve racial equality or integration, such as busing, the mere fact that large majorities of whites by the early 1980s supporting anti-discrimination principle reflected a profound shift in racial attitudes. The margin of support for colorblind norms has only increased since then. This dramatically changed racial climate has led defenders of mass incarceration to insist that our criminal justice system, whatever its past since, is now largely fair and non-discriminatory. They point to violent crime rates in the African American community as a justification for the staggering number of black men who find themselves behind bars. Black men, they say, have much higher rates of violent crime. That's why so many of them are locked up. Typically, this is where the discussion ends. The problem with this abbreviated analysis is that violent crime is not responsible for mass incarceration. As numerous researchers have shown, violent crime rates have fluctuated over the years and bear little relationship to incarceration rates, which have soared during the past 3 decades, regardless of whether violent crime was going up or down. Today, violent crime rates are historically low levels, yet incarceration rates continue to climb. Murder convictions tend to receive a tremendous amount of media attention, which feeds the public sense that violent crime is rampant and forever on the rise. But like violent crime in general, the murder rate cannot explain the growth of the penal apparatus. Homicide convictions account for a tiny fraction of the growth in the prison population. In federal systems, for example, homicide offenders account for 0.4% of the past decade's growth in the federal prison population, while drug offenders account for nearly 61% of that expansion. In a state system, less than 3% of new court commitments to state prison typically involve people convicted of a homicide. As much as half of state prisoners are violent offenders, but that statistic can easily be misinterpreted. Violent offenders tend to get longer prison sentences than non-violent offenders, and therefore compromise a much larger share of the prison population than they would have if they had earlier release dates. In addition, state prison data excludes federal prisoners who are overwhelmingly incarcerated for non-violent offenses. As of September 2009, only 7.9% of federal prisoners were convicted of violent crimes. The most important fact to keep in mind, however, is this. Debates about prison statistics ignore the fact that most people who are under correctional control today are not in prison. As noted earlier, of the nearly 7.3 million people currently under correctional control, only 1.6 million are in prison. That's crazy. 7.3 million people are tied into probation or parole. And even though, what's that? That's at 1.6, so we'll say 5.7 million of them are walking around with some form of freedom. They really are just basically property to the state. Property to the state or property to the city. That's almost 10 million people, y'all. That's crazy. This caste system extends far beyond prison walls and governs millions of people who are on probation and parole, primarily for nonviolent offenses. They have been swept into the system, branded criminals or felons, and ushered into a permanent second-class status, acquiring records that will follow them for life. Probationers are the clear majority of those who are under community supervision, 84%, and only 19% of them were convicted of a violent offense. The most common offense for which probationers are under supervision is a drug offense. Even if the analysis is limited to people convicted of felonies, thus excluding extremely minor crimes and misdemeanors, nonviolent offenders still predominate. Only about a quarter of felony defendants in large urban counties violent offense in 2006. In cities such as Chicago, criminal courts are clogged with low-level drug cases. In one study, 72% of criminal cases in Cook County, Chicago, had a drug charge, and 70% of them were charged as a Class 4 felony possession, the lowest level felony charge. None of this is to suggest that we ought not be concerned about violent crime in impoverished urban communities. We should care deeply, and as discussed in the final chapter, we must come to understand the ways in which mass imprisonment increases not decreases, the likelihood of violence in urban communities. But at the same time, we ought not be misled by those who insist that violent crime has driven the rise of this unprecedented system of racial and social control. The uncomfortable reality is that arrests and convictions for drug offenses, not violent crime, have propelled mass incarceration. In many states, including Colorado and Maryland, drug offenders now constitute the single largest category of people admitted to prison. People of color are convicted of drug offenses at rates out of all proportion to their drug crimes, a fact that has greatly contributed to the emergence of a vast new racial undercast. These facts may still leave some readers unsatisfied. The idea that the criminal justice system discriminates in such a terrific fashion when few people openly express or endorse racial discrimination may seem far-fetched, if not absurd. How could the war on drugs operate in a discriminatory manner on such a larger scale when hardly anyone advocates or engages in explicit race discrimination? That question is the subject of this chapter. As we shall see, despite the colorblind rhetoric and fanfare of recent years, the design of the drug war effectively guarantees that those who are swept into the nation's new undercast are largely black and brown. This sort of claim invites skepticism. Non-racial explanation and excuses for the systematic mass incarceration of people of color are plentiful. It is the genius of the new system, pardon me, of control that it can always be defended on non-racial grounds, given the rarity of a noose or a racial slur in connection with any particular criminal case. Moreover, because blacks and whites are almost never similarly situated, given extreme racial segregation in housing and disparate life experiences, trying to control for race in an effort to evaluate whether the mass incarceration of people of color is really about race or something else, anything else, is difficult, but it is not impossible. A bit of common sense is overdue in public discussions about racial bias in the criminal justice system. The great debate over whether black men have been targeted by the criminal justice system or unfairly treated in the war on drugs often overlooks the obvious. What is painfully obvious when one steps back from individual cases and specific policies is that the system of mass incarceration operates with the stunning efficiency to sweep people of color off the streets, lock them in cages, and then release them into an inferior second-class status. Nowhere is this more true than in the war on drugs. The central question, then, is how exactly does a formerly colorblind criminal justice system achieve such racially discriminatory results? Rather easily, it turns out. The process occurs in two stages. The first step is to grant law enforcement officials extraordinary discretion regarding whom to stop, search, arrest, and charge for drug offenses, thus ensuring, let me read that again. The process occurs in two stages. The first step is to grant law enforcement officials extraordinary discretion regarding whom to stop, search, arrest, and charge for drug offenses, thus ensuring that conscious and unconscious racial beliefs and stereotypes will be given free rein. Unbridled discretion inevitably creates huge racial disparities. Then the damning step. Close the courthouse doors to all claims by defendants and private litigants that the criminal justice system operates in racially discriminatory fashions. Demand that anyone who wants to challenge racial bias in this system offer in advance clear proof that the racial disparities are the product of intentional racial discrimination, i.e., the work of a bigot. This evidence will almost never be available in the era of colorblindness, because everyone knows, but does not say, that the enemy in the war on drugs can be identified by race. This simple design has helped to produce one of the most extraordinary systems of racialized social control the world has ever seen. So I'm going to leave this here, and when I pick up next time, we're going to continue in Chapter 3, Colorblindness, Picking and Choosing, the Role of Discretion. With that, black people, you're significant, you're needed, and so is our solidarity. So let's stick together. Let's build off of one another. And if you're the smartest person in your circle, it's time to start building a different circle, because it's time to elevate, and we need us all to be on board. I hope you have a great day. I hope your today is great and your tomorrow is greater. Peace.